Election day fast approaching. We know this. Abortion now taking center stage in Georgia as the race between Warnock and Walker leads the battle for the 50-50 Senate. And according to the latest 538 poll, Warnock has a 4-point lead ahead of Walker, a nearly 2-point boost since the damning Daily Beast article was released. At NewsNation, we want to bring both sides in for this conversation. So joining us now to discuss, Democratic strategist Crystal Knight and host of the Tony Katz Show, Tony Katz. It is great to see you both. I want to start with you, Crystal. You know, abortion only one of the key issues heading into the midterms. Some polls fall behind other topics are showing that. I mean, we're talking about the economy, rising crime, all these other issues. So with that in mind, is Walker's scandal really going to have an impact on voters once they cast their ballot in just a few weeks?
Well, we're already seeing it have an impact on voters, at least as it relates to the polls. You know, Warnock is polling and trending higher because of this. But ultimately, we know that people go to the polls based upon their pocketbooks. You know, inflation, the cost of goods and services, the cost of groceries. Those are things that affect everyone's day-to-day lives. You know, this scandal, it's not good for Walker personally, but ultimately, it does not impact the day-to-day lived experience of the voters of Georgia. And so they'll be thinking about the issues that really impact, you know, the things that they care about the most. And I think that ultimately Warnock will come out on top.
Tony, I want to bring you in here. You know, Walker's campaign fired its political director just weeks before Election Day, and there were some suspicions that the director may have been leaking information to the media. What does all of this upset say about the state of Walker's campaign? And is this a candidate that the GOP should still be rallying behind?
I have no idea what it says about the state of Herschel Walker's campaign at all. If you ask if people are going to still stand behind Herschel Walker, what they're going to do is stand opposed to Senator Raphael Warnock. They're going to stand opposed to people who believe in more spending. They're going to stand opposed to people who vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a green bill that does nothing to reduce inflation. They're going to stand opposed to people who are somehow massively in favor of gender-affirming care, which we're seeing the political left do, which is really saying it's okay to engage in mutilation of children. There are a tremendous number of issues that take precedence over this. And Raphael Warnock, while he does indeed have a lead, I mean, that is a fact, it's not 100% a given that the state is his.
Crystal, you have the floor.
But you didn't answer the question. You didn't answer the question, will voters stand behind Herschel Walker? That was the question.
But that's the wrong question. They will vote in many cases for Herschel Walker because what they're voting against. If you want to argue that Herschel Walker has created a character conversation, that's completely fine. But there's a lot of character conversations that we can have out there.
That you're doing. You're having a lot of deflection without a direct answer, because this is what the GOP is today. It's a party of deflection. It's a party of hypocrisy. It's a party that says,
I just answered the fundamentals.
Not as I do. And that's what this conversation is about.
Well, Raphael Warnock is a pastor who's okay with abortion. We actually want to have this conversation. And if we want to get deep into it, we can.
Herschel Walker is an individual who's also okay with abortion, allegedly. I want to, be careful to say that all of these allegations are alleged. But if everything is true, then it's hypocrisy, and the GOP.
But it's not.
Well, and Crystal, I mean, to that point, many leaders in the Republican Party have doubled down on their endorsement for Walker, saying the abortion allegations are simply lies. In terms of the Democratic view for this, is this just blind support at the 11th hour?
Absolutely. They're doubling down on their hypocrisy. I mean, these are the same folks, and we have other examples. So I don't want to just highlight that, Herschel Walker is the only person who's ever done this in the case of history. There's a U.S. congressman in the state of Tennessee, Scott DesJarlais, who is a sitting member of Congress who has paid for a mistress or a woman, allegedly, to get an abortion. But these are the same members who will go in and vote against the care and the support of women who want the autonomy to choose what is right for their body, what is right for their families. And so that's what I'm highlighting, and that's what I'm calling out, is that the GOP is willing at any cost to put another person in the seat just so that they can maintain power and have these same folks who vote against the things that they say that they don't want.
Tony, quick reaction from you. Is it a grab for power at any cost? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, the Republicans want to have control of the Senate. They want to have a secure border. They want to bring down inflation. They want to have energy security. How else do you do that with a party like the Democrats that don't want any of these things? Well, of course it's about power. What are we playing pretend here? This is politics. Welcome to the real
Power
world.
and
And we should
concept.
speak about Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden as Catholics being okay with abortion if we want to talk hypocrisy.
We do not have the time.
I reject the idea that you're going to weaponize religion in the name of a particular ideology.
I'm just noting that Catholics may have an issue with it.
Premise.
Crystal and Tony, I truly believe that all of us need to be able to come in and have the conversation together. And I certainly appreciate both of you doing that tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
You take
Thanks
care.
for having me.